Good morning. And welcome. I'm Barb Trammell, the CEO of the Oregon Golf Association, and on behalf of the Golf Alliance of Oregon, just want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming today. I know we're going to have an informative and interesting topic to discuss, and hopefully it'll be very interactive as well, and hopefully we'll all learn something before we leave here. Just a few thank yous and some special recognitions before we get started. Number one, thank you to Stone Creek Golf Club for hosting today. Gordon Talbert of our Alliance made this possible. Thank you to Doug Susi, the head golf professional, and Jason Coles. And Dave Phipps is with us today. Dave, thank you. Please stand up. A little bit about the Golf Alliance of Oregon. We started this about 2.5 years ago at a very informal meeting at the Portland Golf Show and brought together representatives of what we consider were the 5 core organizations, associations in the state. And got to talking about what we can do, what is our objective, what should we be trying to do to further the growth of the game initiatives. And one of the things we all felt very strongly about was to initiate an economic impact study. We just thought it was a very important piece that we wanted to come together and to do. And today is the culmination of those efforts. And we're very excited about the fact that we've been able to bring this to fruition. In talking with the group members, our mission, if you will, is to provide a unified vision and act as a unified voice for the future of golf in Oregon and Southwest Washington. And so together we thought it was very important that we start off with this piece of information at the very beginning. I want to introduce some of the Alliance members that are here today. First, from the Golf Course Owners Association, Larry Justina. Larry, thank you.
Thank you.
Liz Doyle. Thank you, Liz. And I don't think Ralph is here yet. Ralph Stading? Oh, Ralph, you just showed up. Ralph Stading, thank you very much. Welcome. From the Oregon Golf Course Superintendents Association, Linda Whitworth, the Executive Director. Thank you, Linda. Is Phil here?
He's on his way.
Phil Lago's on his way from, I think, driving up from Black Butte this morning, so hopefully he'll be here. From the Club Managers Association, Brian Fisher, the Executive Director of Columbia Edgewater. Thank you, Brian. And unfortunately, the PGA of America guys who sit on our alliance could not be here today, but representing from the OPGA board is Quincy Hurd. Quincy, thank you. And also on the Golf Alliance, I'd like to introduce Eric Yalen, the OGA Director of Marketing and Communications. Thank you. And also, who has kind of served as a consultant for us from time to time, I want to recognize Roger Martin, our lobbyist for the OGA. Thank you, Roger. I don't know if Bill Perry is here. Bill? Bill, thank you. Bill Perry, the lobbyist for the Oregon Restaurant Association, has also served as a consultant from us from time to time, so thank you. A couple of other recognitions I'd like to make and special guests for attending. We do have a couple of state representatives with us today and appreciate their attendance. Representative Gene Wisnant from Sun River. Yep. And Representative Vic Gilliam. Thank you. I'd like to also thank John Bodenhammer, the CEO and Executive Director of the Pacific Northwest Golf Association, for being with us. John, thank you. Rob Golombiewski, the Assistant Professional Turf Management from OSU. Thank you, Rob. Sue Plato is with us, the Executive Director of the Portland chapter of the Executive Women's Golf Association. Todd Davidson, CEO of Travel Oregon. Thank you, Todd. And from our charitable giving portion here in Oregon, Tom Melitas, President of Tournament Golf Foundation. Thank you, Tom. And Mike Gillespie, the Executive VP of Peter Jacobson Sports. Thank you, Mike. We've got many other people here today that I've probably forgotten to introduce as a special guest, but what I would like to do right now is to just go around the room, and everyone who has not been introduced, I'd like you to stand, give us your name and what faction of the golf industry that you represent, and even if you're just a fan of the game, we're happy to have you with us, but this will give Peter and Greg and I an idea of who all is here today and representing what portion of the business. So let's start over here at the front table, if you would please. Thanks.
I am Bryce Finman. I am a PGA golf professional for Resort Canal.
Thanks.
Tony Lash, the golf course superintendent at the Resort.
Frank Casares, general manager at Resort Canal.
Fred DeRusher, interested in what's going on.
I'm Debbie DeRusha. We belong here down the road at Arrowhead and another interested party.
Thank you. Next table. Thanks.
Mark Wilkett with United Pipe and Supply. We're a wholesale distributor in town, and we represent the Raybird Golf product line.
Dave Liverman, United Pipe and Supply, same company, same thing.
I'm Lee Fry with Rainbird Golf. We represent golf irrigation.
Next, let's go across the aisle. Thank you.
Laura Zettner with Clackamas County.
And I'm Christine Doozer, also with Clackamas County.
I'm Mike McLeese. I'm the Clackamas County Parks manager, and Stone Creek is one of our parks.
Great. Let's hop back to the next table.
I'm John Westerdahl with Aquatrolls. We supply products to the golf course superintendents.
Tom Keenan, superintendent.
Mel Bushnowski, environmental consultant with Envirologic Resources.
Jean Biggerstaff, also with the Portland chapter of the Executive Women's Golf Association.
Denny Taylor, I serve as a volunteer with the OGA and also spend most of my expendable income in this room.
Sean Cronin, Western Equipment, turf maintenance equipment for golf courses.
Next table. Chris?
Chris Melius, Langdon Farms, privately owned, tax-paying public course.
Jack Wolfwood, Oregon State Foundation. Nolan Winker, I'm the course superintendent at Landon Farms.
Great. That's everybody. Thank you all very much for being here. I think you'll see that we've got a wide and diverse representation in our industry. So I know it's going to be a very lively, hopefully lively discussion today. I want to take this opportunity to introduce our presenters for the day. And we're very thrilled and honored to have two very distinguished gentlemen of national recognition, and very much appreciate the time that they're given us today to speak to us on the economy of golf in Oregon. First of all, Dr. Peter Ryan. Dr. Ryan has extensive experience directing research projects and development initiatives in the golf industry. As director of the initial golf economy studies with SRI and the World Golf Foundation, he has engaged in numerous projects estimating the national and state economic impacts of golf. He's also led many projects focused on professional education for the PGA of America and the World Golf Foundation, including apprentice education, certification, executive education, and player development programs. Dr. Ryan has presented on golf research and development programs at a number of venues, including the World Scientific Conference of Golf, Golf 2020 annual conferences, USGA conferences, PGA section conferences, and the First Tee annual meetings. In his work, he has collaborated with hundreds of golf industry professionals, as well as leaders from the PGA, the LPGA, PGA Tour, GCSAA, the USGA, and many golf industry manufacturers and employers. Beyond the golf industry, Dr. Ryan has more than 25 years experience in research design, data analysis, statistical modeling, large-scale education program development, and project management on initiatives of national scope for commercial, non-for-profit, and government clients. He holds a PhD from Stanford University. Please welcome Dr. Peter Ryan. Also joining us today is Greg Lyman. Greg has gained international respect for his work in enhancing golf's relationship with the environment. His career has taken him from the golf course to the classroom to his current position of leading a national effort to galvanize the golf industry's sustainability efforts. Lyman has served as the Environmental Programs Director for the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America since 2003. He works with golf industry stakeholders, scientists, and environmental groups as an advocate of positive environmental progress for the golf industry. He is a frequent speaker, panelist, and source to media, legislative, regulatory bodies. One of Greg's chief projects has been a comprehensive national survey of golf courses to determine environmental stewardship, land use characteristics, pesticide and nutrient use, water conservation, and energy use. This data has been used by individuals inside and outside of golf to define the nature of the industry. His latest work is focused through the Environmental Institute for Golf and its collaboration on golf's drive towards sustainability. This initiative is focused on providing golf facilities with a toolkit of resources to foster sustainable management. Please welcome Greg Lyman.
Okay. Now in Oregon, you'll see that that golf-related supplies number is pretty large. And that's an unusual situation. Why is that? Nike Golf. Okay. And it includes other industries in Oregon that have golf-specific products, but the big nut there is Nike Golf. And that's not the total value of Nike Golf. That's only the added value of Nike Golf. And I think Nike Golf, I recall the numbers, Nike as a organization is 19 billion. Nike Golf is about $1 billion. So. Okay, so then we can see that the two enabled industries, golf tourism is much larger than golf real estate. That's because we're estimating 2008. Now, and here's where the numbers can change quite a bit. The real estate markets are have stopped, basically. So the enabled industry in real estate is very low relative to what was estimated in 2005. The estimates would be much higher if it was based on 2005 and 2006, because that's when building was fairly rampant throughout the state, or throughout the United States. So then our total direct, now when we say direct, that's the money spent directly. The first spend is about $1.2 billion. That's the direct economy throughout the state of Oregon. That's our estimate. And it includes those components. So again, golf-related supplies turned out to be the largest, principally because of Nike Golf and the other manufacturers. And by the way, this Oregon has a significant turf industry. We didn't include that in here either, because I believe that the turf and the grass seed industry is about $570 million just alone. So a portion of that ends up on golf, but most of that is exported. So we don't count that as the golf industry because that's the turf industry. Hospitality and tourism and operations. So it's comparable. We like to make these comparisons, not to say, you know, one's better than the other, but it's probably comparable in this state to software publishing, greenhouses, and nurseries. And now, what are the major industries in this state? The top of the line industries. What's that?
Wood products.
Forest products is one. Okay, but in most states, the #1 industry is healthcare and social services. So those are up in the $20, $30, $40 billion range, because every place, that's ubiquitous. Everyone has to spend money on that. But when you get into the manufacturing industries or the other sectors, when you get above $1 billion, that's a sizable industry. In Oregon, I believe forest products is about $8 billion. Paper manufacturing is about 3.5. So, you know, relatively speaking, it's smaller than some of those large industries, but it's still sizable. Okay, so $1.2 billion is the direct impact. That's the money directly spent. Now, every time a dollar is spent, if I buy, let me ask you this question. If I'm going to buy a car and I spend $20,000 on a car, that's the direct impact. That's $20,000 of new economic activity. All right, but what happens to that money? As a result of me buying a car, what has to happen in the system? People get paid. That's that output side. Okay, what else happens? They have to produce more goods. They have to produce more steel, more rubber. The factories have to gear up and build more cars. So those are the inputs. So as a result of the direct activity, there has to be new inputs and new outputs in the system. And so when we look at the indirect and the induced, that's what we're looking at. And that's when people say multiplier effects. As a result of spending money, dollars circulate in the system. So there has to be more manufacturing for the inputs, and that's indirect. And then there are outputs. How do I spend my money? How do I go out and use those resources? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about multiplier effects. And to estimate the multipliers, we use RIMS-2, and that's the U.S. Department of Commerce. They have been doing this for about 40 or 50 years, and they estimate, they have tables for regions and states and various areas, how different industries relate to each other in terms of the inputs and the outputs. And those are the numbers we use. We use a series of different numbers for different portions. So the multiplier that we apply to travel and tourism is different than the multiplier that we apply to real estate or the multiplier that we apply to another area, because construction generally has a larger multiplier than some retail services. And so those are the models that we use. Most government entities are familiar with that model or that use.
Was the impact on tax revenue
No.
studied?
No, we didn't. Okay, so the RIMS model does not estimate tax revenue. The reason we don't do that as part of our general study, there are a couple of other systems you can use. One's called IMPLAN, one's called REMI. We use RIMS too. That's another step in the process. We generally don't do that because every state is different, and then within every state, like in California, almost every county is different. So once you start estimating tax revenue, it's almost a separate study. You can do that though. But in Oregon, remember, you have no sales tax, right? So there would be no tax on the goods that were sold. We'd have to estimate taxes from, if there was a service tax, a value-added tax. There's no value-added tax in Oregon, is there? No. So, and then we'd look at taxes that would be local, state income taxes. That would be for the wage earners. So there's a number of different taxes, as well as local property taxes that would be estimated, but that's a separate study in itself. As it turns out, we've done it in a couple of states, and they're always underwhelmed by the amount of tax money that's estimated. Because if you have, like in California, I get hit from all sides. Everything is taxed in California, so the number's large. But in some states like Washington and Oregon, where you don't have an income tax and you don't have a sales tax, then the numbers are low. A lot of it falls on property tax. So those multipliers are added to those areas, and that's how we get the 2.5 total. That's how we get a $2.5 billion total impact, which includes the inputs as well as the outputs. Okay? The other thing that comes from RIMS is the number of jobs estimated. Approximately 27,000 jobs would be supported by that amount of economic activity. So within the state of Oregon, there's approximately 27,000 jobs that are supported by the economic activity within the Gulf economy in the year 2008. So that's one of the most important messages, is that when you talk to people and you say 27,000 people work in this economic cluster, that would be surprising to most people. They wouldn't understand that 27,000 people work in the golf business, or have some relationship to the golf business, or earn their living through the golf business. And that can be said for other industries. Again, so all we're trying to do is define what that is. So that's one of the core messages, is that golf generates new economic activity, also employs a lot of people. Now, what it doesn't say are the types of jobs. We know that some of those jobs in the golf industry are service-related jobs. And then we know that many others are professional jobs. So that's lumping them all together. So I've already gone over this, and the total wage income is the other factor. About $700 million in wages generated within this economic cluster for the state of Oregon. And that money is generated within the state. Now, where they spend that is another story. So 1.2, 2.5, 700, and 27,000. Those are kind of the takeaways in terms of the impact, the economic impact of the golf industry. We also do an estimate of golf's charitable impact because golf tends to be one of the areas where there's a lot of charity, because almost all organizations, whether they're affiliated with golf or not, do charitable tournaments. And that's kind of a mainstay of the system. So we estimated, based on our algorithm, that about $29 million in golf charity in the year 2008. Now, we're pretty conservative on that. And the reason we are is because that can fluctuate a lot based on the economy. But that includes charitable donations. You have a couple of major events, and they generate a lot of charity. But the majority of that charity is at the local level. It's the hundreds or thousands of tournaments that people run that generate 10,000 here, 15,000 here, 20,000 here. You start multiplying that by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and it gets to be a big number. So golf is one of the major charitable venues. And that's part of the system, and that's a positive highlight of the system. And it also indicates a positive human impact.
Someone earlier this morning mentioned to me that the courses usually donate the courses for high school golf teams. Is that figured into your?
No. So what is figured in here is golf courses usually discount their rounds, right? For charities. So, for example, if a charity's there on Monday and I have a $100 round, in California it's very common, and it's common in Washington. I've actually played in a lot. Say if my golf course charges $100 a round, and you want to do a double shotgun, I'm going to get 144 players, I might sell it out at $60 a round. And that gives you more revenue as a charity, but it also helps sell the golf course. So I'm essentially donating $40 a round. It includes that component.
That's a significant amount we could add up onto the charity.
But it adds to the bottom line of the charity is what it does. That's the intent. So it's a good mutual relationship in that it enhances the bottom line or the margin for the charity, but it also increases play at the golf course. Now, some places don't want to do that because they don't want more rounds, but that's a good relationship.
Where is it?
What's
Where
that?
does somebody not want more rounds?
Private clubs, high-end resorts. A lot of them don't want more rounds. In fact, there are a lot of clubs that are satisfied with 22,000 rounds a year or 18,000 rounds. And every superintendent I've ever met is happy with 1 round. As long as they can take care of the golf course with the revenues from that. They'd rather have one $10 million round. I'm just kidding. So it's a condition revenue issue. And so a lot of the privates that are higher end, that have higher initiation fees, tend to have lower rounds. And that's because it's a private facility. Once you get to the daily fee or the municipal, yeah, they all want to see 50, 60,000 rounds per 18-hole equivalent. And some are doing 90 in 12-month seasons that have a lot of sunlight. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the environmental impact.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. We'll get back to some of Peter's comments here in summary. I want to maybe expand a little bit on the discussion here of the value of golf. Peter's done, I think, a fabulous job in explaining the direct economic impact. But now let's maybe expand the discussion a little bit to think about what's the value of a golf course. And I want to do that through the context of the environmental elements. What is it about this land space that a golf course occupies that is valuable, that adds value to communities? We now have a really good picture here in Oregon of what is the economic impact. Well, I don't consider these environmental impacts. That term doesn't sound quite right in terms of golf. We don't think that golf is impacting the environment, but rather as an environmental contribution. So I wanted to visit with you just for a moment about Oregon's contributions here, and Oregon's what I consider to be a really progressive stance environmentally, and then weave that together a bit with what's happening nationally. Why is it? What's happening on golf courses and the way that they care for and manage the landscape? How does that add value? And why is it that I think we should be weaving these messages together? Okay, what is it that golf adds to communities? Well, the economic elements are vitally important, but I think that what should also roll out of off of our tongues and out of our mouths is what are the the environmental attributes, and what are the social attributes of golf courses, and what do they add to communities. So to start that here in Oregon, I think that Oregon should be very, very proud of how its golf courses are managed and what they mean nationally. We consider, from a national perspective, we consider Oregon to be stars. We consider that the Pacific Northwest are really progressive when it comes to management and the, kind of the long-term vision. And that, that has been manifested in many different ways. Many of you might be have heard of the Audubon International programs, the sanctuary programs for golf courses. Stone Creek here happens to be a member, but there are many other members here within Oregon. In fact, it's one of the highest per capita, if you will, within the states, within the United States. So roughly 19 certified courses here in Oregon, and over 50 of them currently operate directly with the Audubon International. Another thing that you should be aware of is the Oregon Stewardship Guidelines. This was is a terrific document that was put together in collaboration with the Golf Course Superintendents Association and other, the Oregon State University, other environmental consultants to come up with a progressive set of best management practices. We have done some work here nationally in which we have assembled all of the best management practices related to golf and pulled them together into one spot. And we consider this Oregon document to be really at the top of the heap of all of those. And we use this as an example, not only nationally, but I can tell you that it is used internationally to get an understanding of how they approach management here and how it can be progressive. Some other areas which Oregon happens to shine is in our organization at the Golf Course Superintendents Association and our affiliated organization, the Environmental Institute for Golf. We have an Environmental Leaders in Golf Award. And here within, just within the last 10 years, we have 4 winners from Oregon. And our latest, David Phipps in 2008, was a national award winner in the public category for here at Stone Creek Golf Club. So the management here, the accomplishments, the kind of their philosophy of management is being noticed nationally. And so I think that's something that you all should be proud of. The other thing I want to mention is that the connection that the superintendents have here and that golf has here with Oregon State University. Dr. Golombiowski is here today, and I think that's representative of this collaboration. And this is an important alliance. It's present in many other states, but what it represents here is the commitment to research, the commitment to education, the commitment to science-based management of these properties. And I think that that's an important element for all of golf, and you have it here manifested very well within Oregon. I think it's something to celebrate, quite frankly. And then finally, when we talk about being progressive environmentally, we're here at Stone Creek, and I think this is a fantastic example of what can be accomplished here on a golf course. And you think of this as a managed land use, right? This is a managed landscape, and we should not be afraid or concerned to say that we use inputs within golf to produce a product for the clientele. But I think that what we can do and what Stone Creek represents is that we will commit to using these products professionally, and you should bet that everything is being done here in the long-term interest of this piece of property and for the larger watershed and for the community. And so you'll see, if you get a chance to play golf this afternoon, take a chance to look around maybe outside of what's just underneath your ball. Because there is a lot to see here. As an Audubon Sanctuary member, they've been able to kind of enrich a lot of the wildlife areas, those out-of-play areas, connect them together as corridors. You'll see a lot of really robust riparian buffers, those areas around all of the water on this property. There's also a really cool native pollinator area here at Stone Creek. David has worked with the Xerces Society, and there are some ground living bees as natural pollinators that are kind of a set-aside area in which they can proliferate. And then you'll also see, outside of golf, you'll see a walking trail that goes all the way around the property and weaves through the property just a bit. So it's, it functions not only just for golf, but in other uses for the community. So for all of the things that are happening here in Oregon, this is a fantastic example for you to understand.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
In the legislative session, I've used the term the Audubon International, and the response you get very quickly is that's not the Audubon Society, that's just a phony organization created by the golfing industry. What is the Audubon International?
Great question. It is not affiliated with the Audubon Society, okay? And the way this evolved was that the New York Audubon Society, which was directly affiliated with Audubon, began to create this program directly for golf courses. Okay? They then moved away from the New York State Audubon Society and created this organization called Audubon International, and it is a conservation environmental organization that then directs their effort for golf. Okay? And so it has its programs. It has 6 to 8 modules: water use, integrated pest management, wildlife habitat management. That is a program directed for golf. So I think that, yeah, for those comments coming out, I think that sure, it is not directly affiliated. It is not part of the Audubon Society as we know it, but it is an environmental organization directed toward golf. Clearly, yeah. Good question, David.
Not only just golf, but it's also directed towards schools and
all right.
different properties as well. And their outreach is far beyond golf as well. So it's
they have a hotel program.
hotels, exactly.
They have a livable communities program. So golf is one of their sectors that they work with, but it is, you're right, it is not directly affiliated with golf. Okay, other questions there? All right, well, I'd like to take just a minute maybe and expand the conversation from outside of Oregon here to what's happening nationally and even internationally. And our organization, the Environmental Institute for Golf, is our fundraising and fundraising arm of the GCSAA, has been asked to lead this collaborative effort of the golf industry. Because it's not about, it is a facility effort, it's an industry effort. And so that not just only involves the golf course superintendents, but it involves club managers, golf professionals, golf course owners, to get involved and understand how these systems, how this property is of value to the community. And so as such, we have put together what is Golf Drive Towards Sustainability. And we consider sustainability to be a three-part concept. That is, it addresses people, planet, and profit. Okay, so that, and we consider that those are directly aligned with golf's values. So people, planet, and profit, we feel that these are social attributes for communities, recreational attributes. Peter has talked about the economic elements, and I think that we have a real story to tell about the environmental elements of these properties. So to do that, one thing that the Institute has done here over the last 5 years is to really dig in to try to understand what happens on these land spaces. So we have a series of 5 surveys that have just recently been completed. 3 of them are published, not unlike what Peter is doing nationally with the economic survey. But we have identified what are the land use characteristics, and many of you that are golfers understand the land space that's under your feet usually when you're making a shot. And we now know that golf courses nationally are about 150 acres. About 100 of those acres are turf related, okay, or golf related. And that leaves 50 acres that are not. And so we see really a mosaic of land uses within those other 50 acres. There's a lot of water on golf courses. There's forested areas. We have riparian areas. There are, well, think of all of the landscapes that golf aligns itself in. So within those 100 acres, we even now can understand a bit more about golf courses. And that is, of the 100 acres of maintained turf, 6 acres are what we consider to be highly maintained. 3 acres of putting greens and 3 acres of tees. And so I think that's maybe a little counterintuitive when we think of that green space that is golf. Of 150 acres, 6 acres are highly maintained, and we have roughly double that on an average golf course. Roughly double that, 11 acres, is water. So we have more water generally on golf courses, more water bodies, wetlands, streams, ponds, lakes, than we do highly managed turf. So we think that's an important story for golf. So we've also looked at some of the other inputs: water use, nutrient use, pesticide use, and energy use. And for those that would like to learn more about that, we're glad to share, and you can find it there at the Institute website, eifg.org, to understand a little bit more about those inputs. And so finally, I want to turn it back over to Peter, but I think that, again, I would like to maybe expand the scope of these considerations for golf, and that these are environmental, they are economic, and they are social or recreational assets to communities. And I think that we need to change the way perhaps that our community members may have a default position about golf. And I will leave you with this, in that if you're a trout fisherman, if you like outdoor sports and you're a trout fisherman, and you are in a trout stream, and you're catching fish, okay, intuitively a trout fisherman knows what it takes to have habitat to support fish. Those have to be clean waters. You have to have the right characteristics for trout to be able to survive. And they advocate for that. Trout fishermen advocate for those conditions which will proliferate the sport that they have a lot of passion about. And I think that we need to connect that to our golfers and to our non-golfers, to understand that those places that they enjoy, that this fit sport that they are passionate about, is also played on a fit landscape. And that we should expect that these are going to be here for a long period of time, and that they're managed in a way that's in the best interest of the community. And so we believe that these type of sessions, this type of work that Peter is doing, so we can better understand the economic elements, is part of the future of the game. And that our proactive stance for the care and management of these courses is also key to the future of the game. So again, thank you for the invitation. We have plenty of other information that we can discuss afterward. Peter, if we can, I'd like to leave you with a short video that we have been using. If we can get our gizmos going. While I'm talking, I'm gonna flip on this TV. What we have done to begin to help communicate the environmental attributes of golf is that we have a relationship with the Golf Channel, and we have put together over the last 3 years 1-minute informational vignettes, and they come in and out on the Golf Channel on their coverage of events. And so we invite folks from around the country, superintendents, to come and do these vignettes. So what I want to show you is one that has been done by David Phipps here at Stone Creek this last year. And actually one of his, we did roughly 40 of them this year, and they're played throughout the year. And one of David's actually was on this weekend during the LPGA event. So while I'm talking, let me see if I can get it to come up. These are 1 minute infomercials. If not, why then we'll try to get our gizmos going at a later time. All right, here we go.
Hey, I'm Justin. Let's take a look at another way golf courses are helping out the environment.
What is the right color of green on the golf course? The answer is, it depends. Because grass displays different physical characteristics throughout the year, golfers may encounter many different hues on the golf course. And despite the presence of some grass that is not emerald green, it does not mean conditions are subpar. Golfers who demand wall-to-wall green may just be sacrificing the playability of the course. Golf courses, they're good for the community, and they're good for you.
My course is eco-friendly. Choose your course.
Well, there you have it. David Phipps and his pal Justin Timberlake.